As Israel withdrew from raid on Shifa Hospital, accounts from military and witnesses differed wildly, and the world is shocked. On Monday, the Israeli military withdrew from its second devastating raid on Gaza's largest hospital, Shifa, leaving it in ruins with the walls blown out and blackened. Despite the destruction, Israel claimed the battle as a victory in its battle against Hamas militants and said it hadn't harmed civilians that were sheltered inside the hospital. But accounts from observers on the ground and the World Health Organization tell a different story. They describe a terrifying 2-week raid during which more than a dozen civilians died and others were brutally detained and trapped inside a facility with dwindling supplies. Here are some important aspects of the raids that we are explaining. Firstly, have civilians and patients been killed? Israel says its forces launched the surprise attack on March 18th. After 2 weeks of battle inside Shifa, the military had killed 200 militants, according to the spokesperson Daniel Hagari. He maintained that no civilians sheltering inside the hospital were harmed and said forces had provided some 6,000 Palestinians sheltering there with food, water, and medicine. He added that the army deployed medical teams and Arabic speakers to communicate and help those inside before evacuating everyone effectively. But World Health Organization, or the WHO Director General, said on Sunday that 21 patients inside the hospital had died since the start of the siege. He said 107 patients had been left inside the hospital, including young children and adults in critical condition. He said they lack health support, medical care, and supplies. He also added that since yesterday, only 1 bottle of water remains for every 15 people. Contagious diseases are spreading due to extremely unsanitary conditions and a lack of water. Now, the raid triggered days of fighting for blocks around Shifa. Witnesses and journalists reported airstrikes, the shelling of homes, and troops forcing residents to evacuate. One resident said Israeli fighter jets were hitting anything moving in that area. Another said his 7 relatives were killed in Israeli airstrikes. The Israeli military did not comment on any civilian deaths near or outside the hospital. Now, a question that the world is asking is, what did Israel achieve? Who has Israel arrested and detained? Israel said it arrested 900 suspected militants. Of those, according to Israel, it has confirmed 500 are militants, some of them high-level commanders and members of Hamas's top political strata. But according to accounts from the Gaza Health Ministry and Al Jazeera, which is a Qatar-based media network, medical workers and journalists were among those detained and brutalized by Israeli forces. A group of reporters was handcuffed, blindfolded, and stripped of their clothes for 12 hours. This is according to a statement by Al Jazeera. Israel's military did not respond to this allegation. So what happened as the raid ended? After killing and rounding up suspects inside the hospital, military spokesman Hagari said that Israeli forces retreated, exiting the compound on Monday. 2 Israeli soldiers were killed and 8 injured in the fighting, according to him. Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, which is a militant group loosely linked to President Mahmoud Abbas' Fatah movement, said its fighters had targeted Israeli forces with artillery during the operation and as forces withdrew. Hamas also released videos of militants preparing shells that it said were directed towards Israeli forces in the hospital compound. Now, the spokesperson of Israeli Defense Forces, Daniel Hagari, acknowledged that the fighting had destroyed Shifa's emergency ward and a major hospital compound. He admitted that because of the barricading, bombs and explosives were used in those buildings. Now, the question is, why did Israel target Shifa for a second time? Since Hamas militants stormed the southern Israel on October 7th, Israel has made Shifa a central component of its blistering counter-offensive on Gaza. Israel faces heavy scrutiny over its 2 major offensives on Gaza. That is because hospitals receive special protections under international law. Israel says that Shifa lost that protection because it is a central command and control center for Hamas. Rights groups and international lawyers say evidence to support this claim has been faulty and insufficient. In justifying its first raid, Israel said that underneath the hospital lay a complex network of tunnels, a central command center for Hamas. Evidence poured from that raid, caches of weapons, a tunnel leading to small rusty quarters that appeared out of use, and no scores of militants were found. And all these claims fell short. Now, Hagari said on Monday that the intelligence had been wrong and that Israel had tipped off Hamas militants at Shifa by announcing its attack plans. So, by doubling back to Shifa in mid-March, he says that forces surprised militants who had regrouped inside. He said that the military now believes militants operated mainly from the hospital wards themselves and not from the tunnels underneath. But this action of Israel is not going unnoticed by the world. Even its allies are asking questions. US White House said it will demand more information from Israel after deeply concerning reports came out on Monday of bodies found strewn at Gaza's largest hospital complex as Israeli forces pulled out. This statement came after the health ministry in Hamas-run Gaza reported dozens of bodies, some of them even decomposed, had been found around the hospitals, while the doctors and civilians at the damaged complex told AFP that at least 20 bodies had been found. Some of them appeared to have been driven over by military vehicles. Do tell us what you think about this video in the comment section, and for more news updates, subscribe to India Today.